When I was in high school, I did not get particularly good grades, and I didn't realize that I could pursue art or making video games as a career. So I decided that I would try to become hot and win the boy of my dreams. And that's kind of the premise of Consume Me.
The way you actually play Consume Me is that it is kind of a schedule management RPG. It's basically a game where you have like a limited amount of time in-game and a bunch of things that you're trying to do, so you have to strategize about how you're gonna spend your free time, balance various health meters and stuff, and the activities that you can choose to spend your time on are all a bunch of mini games that were all designed by Jenny about her life and trying to become hot and win the boy of her dreams.
It started out so personal and so mine, but like giving those pieces away to people and letting them make it into something way better than I could ever have done with my own time and my own effort was just like, I don't know, it's so amazing.
But yeah, I think the trust is really, really important. I think if you don't trust your collaborator enough to be able to argue with them, to, I guess, fight for your ideas and what you want to go in there, then you're going to have a diminished product at the end of the day, right?
I cannot do everything by myself, and it's a really useful skill to learn how to ask for help and let people who do things better than me shine in their area. We used Unity for Consume Me because that's the only game engine I know how to use. And I was kind of taught that at school as well.
It was a big part of it it was the engine we were the most comfortable with. And we'd released games in Unity before. Jenny released a ton of small prototypes in Unity. We released a game together, Be Glitched.
You had written a bunch of scripts that you could just literally drag from another Unity project folder into this one.
Yeah, reusing a lot of stuff from all our previous projects, building it all over time. I mean, just in terms of like, I guess, why we stuck with Unity after learning it, I think a big part of it is the fact that it is so multi-platform, like that we could write our code once and it could work on PC, it could work on Mac, it could work on iOS. I think that was a very big component. But I also just really appreciate how customizable the editor is, the ability to write editor scripts and make your own tools. And if there's something you don't like about how the engine works, well, it turns out you can just fix that yourself, and it's not even that hard a lot of the time. So
before AP joined the project, I had a bunch of these prototypes already, and I made them in school. And a lot of my professors and my peers told me to just release this mini game collection as a mini game collection, but I really wanted to tell a story, you know? I remember sometimes I'm like, oh, can you write a script where like when I like hold down the mouse, like the sprite changes, and then when it releases, the sprite changes back to like the original sprite, like stuff like that. Yeah. And I like that back and forth where I'd make a little request and then you'd make a tool that I could use like all over the scene, you know?
So this is basically a system that allows us to make little semi-interactive scenes. So these are little scenes where the player is prompted to do very simple interactions like dragging with the mouse or tapping with the mouse. I built it so that Jenny would have a very, like, I guess, convenient way of putting all these scenes together without having to go write a ton of custom code for every single one of them.
I think something I really wanted to communicate with this game was the struggle that I went through as a teenager, you know, and I feel like, you know, the game has to be hard and you have to be able to fail it and restart it because you're learning something just as I did when I was a teen, you know? And I feel like if you don't have any kind of ability to be good at the game and learn a skill, then there aren't those stakes that you can tie into the emotionality of the story.
So in Consume Me, there are a lot of semi-interactive scenes where the game prompts the player to click or drag with the mouse to move Jenny through a routine. Here is one of the earliest examples in the game, Jenny getting up in the morning. Let's start by just looking at the final version of this scene. As you can see, it starts with prompting us to drag upwards to make the sun rise. Then we have Jenny stop her alarm, drag the covers down, we drag Jenny out of bed, make the bed, brush her teeth, then not be able to decide what to wear, and that's the whole scene. So these scenes are largely built with what we call the event chain. Let's take a look at how this works. The event chain is a big list of objects in the hierarchy view. Each object represents something happening in the scene, whether that's a prompt that the player needs to complete, i.e. a drag or a click, or something that changes in response in the scene. As you can see, this event chain represents the entirety of this scene, and it's been organized into different panels of the scene. Even though this scene is pretty small and simple, there's a lot going on here. To show you how the event chain works, I'm going to focus on just one of these panels. This panel here in the middle, where the player drags Jenny out of bed. So one big advantage of using the hierarchy like this is that it's really easy to rearrange events. For example, maybe I'd like to drag Jenny out of bed before dragging the covers down. So I can take this Jenny right object here, drag Jenny right object here, which, as you can see in the inspector, has a physics drag event on it, along with everything that happens after Jenny is finished being dragged out of bed, i.e. playing a sound effect and shaking the panel. I can select both of these objects and just move them in front of these other events. So now, if I run the scene again, as you can see here, it's now prompting me to drag to the right, which drags Jenny out of bed, and then we drag the covers down. So it's pretty easy to rearrange the order of events by just moving objects around in the hierarchy. Another advantage is that it's really easy to create and duplicate events. For instance, maybe after dragging Jenny out of bed, I want the panel to shake a bunch and prompt the player to click the screen. I can do that by first creating an instant event from the drop-down menu up here, an instant event just being an event that makes a bunch of changes in the scene. I want it to shake the panel, so I'll name it panel shake, and in the inspector, I'll tell it to call the shake function on the object representing the panel. After I've done that, I would like to prompt the player to click the screen. So I can go back to this drop-down menu and choose a tap event. Now, if I'd like this to happen multiple times, all I need to do is just duplicate both of these objects multiple times. Then I can select all of them and move them so they happen right after Jenny is dragged out of bed. So let's take a look at this in the scene. So now we see one shake, and then I'm prompted to tap, shake again, as many times as I duplicated it, and then it moves on to the rest of the event chain. So those are just a few simple examples of how to use the event chain. As you can see from all the options in the drop-down menu, there's a whole lot more we can do with this system, but all of it is about as simple to use as the demonstration that I just showed you. So thank you for checking out Consume Me, and thank you for listening.